You'll be the first to know if I stumble on a T-Rex fossil out here. Though, I'm pretty sure Gaia's history is a lot more recent than that. It's funny, being here makes me think about all the things we still don't know about the universe.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow! AI technology. I recognize the can of worms I am opening up by even talking about this because Lord knows AI in general is a pretty controversial topic online. I'm sure many of you have your own opinions on it. But I think it's like any new technology. It's treated with suspicion when it first comes out. But again, like any technology, I think if it were applied appropriately, it could be really great and do some pretty awesome things. Depending on the application again. I mean, obviously, there are some things that we shouldn't be using AI for, but other things, I think it could result in some pretty awesome experiences. It's like, well, a hammer. Let's think of it like a really complicated hammer. A hammer is an incredibly useful tool when applied right. You can use it to drive nails and build homes. You could also use it to murder your neighbor. You see the problem here? But we're not here to debate the ins and outs of AI usage or whether or not you think it's great. I'm sure you'll gladly share your opinion unprompted down in the comments section. We're here to talk about its use in video games. Because, okay, for one thing, let's get something straight. AI, as it's being used presently, is kind of only a buzzword. The current AI models aren't like Data from Star Trek, or HAL, or Skynet. Like, these are not self-aware constructs you could actually have a legitimate conversation with, and could potentially experience emotions, or does this unit have a soul? These are complex learning algorithms that generally are programmed to accomplish a particular task, whether it be something mundane or actually mimic human conversation. And the technology is improving and getting better at that. And in terms of how it applies to this topic, well, think about that in terms of video games. AI, prior to the current buzzword, when applied to video games, referred to the artificial intelligence programming within the games. There's plenty of games that have allies, computer allies, that are controlled by code. And depending on how they're coded, they could either be pretty good or really awful. I mean, it depends on the game. If we apply the current developments to video games, that could result in some pretty interesting experiences, better experiences, if it's used right. And today's game attempts this concept, and is called Whispers from the Star. Now, Whispers from the Star doesn't do what I would do when it comes to AI technology in a game, because I can't help but think of using AI in something like any squad-based game. You know, think of something like Mass Effect, where you have your squad mates, and you can give them rudimentary commands, go here, shoot at that, you know, basic stuff. But what if, and follow me on this, what if you could, like, verbally tell them, hey, jump behind that barrel, or hey, get behind this guy and flank, like, get more complicated, and they could respond with unique statements and actually follow your direction like a real person would. I mean, there's potential here that has yet to be tapped, especially if we really want to get immersive and combine it with something like VR. Let's be fair about this. Again, if it's applied right, you could get some decent experiences out of this buzzword. Whispers from the Star is not nearly that deep, though, or interesting. Well, it is very interesting, and I actually dare say it's very artistic in its way. In Whispers from the Star, you actually play as yourself, and as part of the story, you get a very, very long-distance transmission from a woman named Stella. She's an astronaut, but a student in the future, and she's crash-landed on a distant Earth-like planet known as Gaia. She needs your help to remain calm and not freak out while she attempts to survive in this unfamiliar landscape and hopefully get to safety. As a result, the gameplay doesn't consist of you controlling her at all. It consists of you talking to her verbally, as well as through text. She has unique responses because she is driven by an AI. In a similar manner to something like ChatGPT, Stella is actually able to remember certain details you've told her about yourself, things you like and your interests. And depending on how you act towards her, you can either get closer to her and develop something of like a long-distance romance, not unlike those AI dating apps, which, not for me, but I get loneliness, you know? I mean, I don't judge if that's what you need to get through your daily life in this crazy world. But the point is that you can actually talk to her and get genuine reactions from her, genuine responses, meaning everyone's playthrough is gonna feel just a little bit different. Obviously, the narrative itself is very linear. There's very limited branching points. There are some, but not many. And there's effectively two different endings, though how they're handled varies differently depending on how close you got to Stella. In my case, I wound up with an optimal relationship with her, making the whole thing especially bittersweet as the ending kind of results in an open-ended conclusion where you just aren't sure what winds up happening to her, regardless of which choice you actually pick. But during the story, you're able to help her navigate certain situations, solve problems, and mostly, honestly, talk about yourself. In order to keep her grounded, a big part of the game is her asking you questions and you answering them, asking her questions and talking about her, like you would a normal person. Though I feel like that takes too much precedence over the problem-solving angle. It's helping her actually navigate the alien terrain, actually calming her down in this survival situation, actually solving issues that she runs into while she's trying to survive. That does make the game genuinely interesting, because depending on what you say, how you say it, and things of that nature, her responses vary, and her mood varies quite a bit. This is the kind of thing that I think makes it really cool. This is genuinely a neat application of what the AI technology that we're working with could do, especially as it gets even better. But does that work well for Whispers from the Star? In terms of it as an experience itself, well, I'll be honest, the narrative in general, as I spoke with Stella, got closer with her, learned about her, by the end of things I did feel something. Some emotion, some attachment. It was bittersweet, watching the game end the way it did. And for it to garner an emotional reaction from me, and likely from other people, as it does have a mostly positive review score on Steam, that says something. That shows that the effort here was not in vain. That the idea of doing a game like this, of expanding on it, making the experience even better, even more immersive, is there. Whether or not that interests you is up to you, but the point is that I think, overall, it was a good experience and I don't regret giving it a chance. But I do think it holds itself back in several ways. There's two main problems I ran into. For one thing, the question and answer thing that's going on here, and I'm pretty sure I know why they're doing this, but I'll get to that in a second, goes on for far too long. Many of the conversations are just her asking you questions and you answering them, rather than actually talking about the lore of the world she's in, or actually developing her, learning about her. You can redirect the conversation to get to that, but generally speaking, if you let her go, she's just going to ask you a lot of personal questions, which I was deliberately vague about, again for a reason I'll get to. But it feels like at times, while sometimes it does make sense for her to do this, again, part of survival and keeping yourself grounded is having that human connection, which is what she's trying to do, I also feel like often it drags on far too long, especially when the game goes into its text portion. She's not always on screen talking to you, sometimes it's just text. And that's fine for brief periods, but there were times where this lasted up to 20 minutes. And listen, guys, if I wanted to talk to an AI via text, I'd just go to ChatGPT right now. This part doesn't feel that immersive, though the talking bits do. So, you know, I'm just saying, you might consider that. But the question and answer stuff does seem to happen most often when compared to the actual survival stuff, the actual problem solving, and I think the latter should have definitely been the priority. It's where you're actually trying to help Stella solve puzzles and things of that nature, where the game is genuinely interesting and actually pretty fun. But that doesn't happen nearly as often as I feel like it should. Most of the time, you're just talking to her, and that can be neat in short bursts, and interesting especially in more emotional moments after you get to know more about her. But most of the time it feels like the game's spinning its wheels, delaying and padding out what is already a fairly short experience. I finished it in less than 5 hours, but you could have cut that down to 3. In the end, though, I still enjoyed it. However, I can't outright recommend you play the game. Now, if you've heard everything I've said so far and you think this game sounds interesting, it is only $10 on Steam, so it's not exactly breaking the bank, and if you want to give it a try, based on this alone, that's fine. However, there is one more thing you should know about. One of the accusations levied at the game by critics points out that in the terms of service, it does mention that the company behind the game does reserve the right to utilize your data to build better AIs in the future. I did go into the terms of service myself to confirm this, and that is absolutely true. Now, I personally don't really care. I don't. I just don't. As long as you're not stealing my identity, and taking my money. So many tech companies take our data to use for whatever, for targeted ads. I mean, just being on Facebook proves that. You're on YouTube right now, they do the same thing. So, this isn't surprising to me, this isn't unexpected, and personally, it didn't stop me from giving the game a shot and playing through it. But I'm sure many of you will have a problem with that, and it would be completely irresponsible and wildly unprofessional of me, not that I'm a professional, but still, immoral of me to recommend this game and not tell you about that. So that's a thing, meaning that if that's something that bothers you, well, I'm sure you've already made your decision as to whether or not you give the game a chance, which I think is a shame, because if it weren't for that, I would safely recommend it. I think there's so much potential here for genuinely unique experiences. The tech's not completely there yet. There were a few times where she misunderstood what I said and ran words together because I tend to stutter a lot. And she didn't question it, she just ran with it, which is not how a normal human would react. So obviously there's still flaws in the AI we're working with, but my point is that there's a lot of stuff we could do with video games and this new tech. Making genuinely good experiences, genuinely immersive experiences. It's something that could result in some pretty fun stuff, but it's still obviously very imperfect, resulting in a flawed, but still very emotional narrative that I did enjoy. Also, they're totally gonna use your data to build more AI models, and you should definitely know that. I have played it, so you don't have to. You're welcome. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.